The old building had stood for nearly a century, its walls hiding stories no one dared to uncover. When the new renovations began, nobody noticed the door that wasn't on any blueprint. It was small, wooden, and tucked away behind layers of peeling paint. Curiosity got the better of the lead architect, and when he opened it, the cold air that rushed out wasn't just a draft. It was something alive, something waiting. From that moment, nothing was the same. What lurked behind the forgotten door would change everything, if anyone survived to tell the tale. Part 1. The discovery. The city's skyline glittered faintly in the distance as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the abandoned Mason building. Once a proud monument of industrial might, it had fallen into decay over the decades, its stories buried beneath dust, silence, and thick layers of neglect. James Carter, the lead architect hired to oversee the building's restoration, stood at the entrance, his breath visible in the crisp autumn air. His team was weeks into the project, stripping back decades of neglect to revive the Mason building for modern use. But tonight, James felt something off, a subtle pull, like the building itself was breathing, waiting. The blueprints spread out on his worn leather desk had been his guide so far. Every door, every beam, every hidden wiring conduit mapped out. Or so he thought. When he came across the peeling paint behind an old storage closet, something caught his eye. A faint outline, an irregular shape beneath the grime, suggested a door, but not one marked on any of the plans. It was small, unassuming, almost camouflaged by the years of dust. Strange, James muttered to himself, fingers tracing the edges of the warped wood. His curiosity gnawed at him. The team had cleared nearly every inch of the building, yet no one had mentioned this door. No one had reported it. Yet here it was, undeniably real. With a deep breath, James pulled the heavy door open. A rush of cold air spilled out like a sigh from the building itself. Darkness stretched beyond, impenetrable and vast. The faint scent of damp earth mixed with something else, something metallic, sharp, and old. The beam of his flashlight pierced the blackness, but revealed nothing. No walls, no floor, just an endless void swallowing the light. A shiver crawled up James' spine. Then, from the depths, a soft sound echoed. A whisper, or was it a breath? Just beyond sight. James blinked, heart pounding. Had the building just exhaled? Or was something else waiting behind the door that wasn't on the blueprints? As James stepped closer, the darkness seemed to pulse, as if alive, and behind him, the door creaked, slowly closing on its own. Part 2. Echoes in the dark. James lunged forward just in time, his hand slamming against the door's edge. The heavy wood stopped mere inches from sealing shut. His breath came in sharp, uneven gasps. What had just happened? Was the door closing by itself, or had some unseen force reached out to trap him? The beam of his flashlight wavered as his fingers gripped the doorframe. The cold air pressed against his skin like icy fingers, whispering secrets too faint to understand. His mind raced back to the blueprints. He had reviewed every page multiple times. No sign of this hidden door. No space behind those walls to warrant it. It was as if the building itself had warped reality to hide something. Swallowing his fear, James stepped inside. The floor beneath his boots was rough stone, slick with damp. The walls were carved from ancient brick, blackened by time. The corridor stretched away into the darkness, barely wide enough to squeeze through. Then, the whispering grew louder, a faint, rhythmic tapping, like something scratching the walls from deep within. James froze, straining his ears. His flashlight flickered. For a moment, the beam illuminated a shape at the corridor's end, a shadowy figure crouched, still as a statue. Then, just as quickly, it vanished. "Hello," James called out, voice cracking. No reply. Only the echo of his own words bounced back at him. He moved forward, each step heavier, the air growing colder. The tapping followed, matching his pace, but never revealing its source. Suddenly, a low rumble vibrated through the walls. Dust and small pebbles rained down from the ceiling. James spun around. The door had vanished, replaced by solid brick. He was trapped. Panic surged. His flashlight flickered one last time, then went dark. In the absolute silence, the tapping stopped. And then breathing. Breath. Just behind him. Part 2. Echoes in the dark. James Carter's heart hammered in his chest as his hand slammed against the rough wood of the door. The heavy door creaked ominously, inches from closing shut behind him. The cold air that rushed out earlier now felt like icy fingers clawing against his skin, whispering secrets only the darkness could hold. The beam of his flashlight trembled, throwing dancing shadows across the walls. His breath was shallow and quick. For a moment, he considered retreating, warning his team and abandoning the strange discovery. But the architect in him, the man driven by curiosity and the need to solve puzzles, would not let him walk away. He stepped fully inside. The air was thick and damp, the scent of earth and old metal pressing against his nostrils. The floor beneath his boots was uneven stone, slick with moisture. Around him, the walls were made of ancient bricks, cracked and blackened by time. This part of the building, hidden behind layers of forgotten walls, felt older than the rest of the structure, like a secret tomb buried beneath the city. James swept the flashlight beam across the corridor ahead. It stretched out in near-complete darkness, barely wide enough for one person. The narrow path seemed endless, swallowed by shadows so thick they almost had a physical presence. A faint noise caught his attention, a rhythmic tapping, slow and deliberate, echoing faintly off the walls. His pulse quickened. The sound was too precise to be the building settling. It was something else, something alive. His eyes strained to see any movement. As he moved cautiously forward, each step echoed into the void. The tapping seemed to keep pace with him, always just out of sight. James's mind raced through possibilities. Rats? Old pipes? Or something far worse? Suddenly, the beam of his flashlight flickered and dimmed. The darkness seemed to push back, hungry for light. For a fleeting second, the light revealed a shape crouched at the corridor's end, a figure shrouded in shadow, still as stone. "Hello," James called, voice betraying his fear. No response came. The figure melted away into the blackness as if it had never existed. James swallowed hard and pressed on, every muscle tense. The corridor twisted, the walls closing in slightly, and the air grew colder, biting into his skin. Then came a deep rumble, low and resonant, vibrating through the walls and floor beneath his feet. Dust and small pebbles fell from the cracked ceiling. James whipped around, heart racing. The door behind him, the only way in, was gone. In its place stood a solid brick wall, seamless and unyielding. He was trapped. A surge of panic rose like a tidal wave. He pounded on the bricks with his fists, calling for help, but the sound was swallowed by the oppressive silence. His flashlight flickered again, then died, plunging him into total darkness. For a moment, James stood frozen, paralyzed by the void surrounding him. And then he heard it, breathing. Slow, deliberate, close. Just behind him. He spun, flashlight useless in the blackness. "Who's there?" he demanded, voice cracking. Only the sound of his own heavy breathing answered. The tapping resumed, this time closer, almost beside him. Then a whisper, so faint it was nearly inaudible. "You shouldn't be here." James's skin prickled with cold sweat. His rational mind tried to explain it. A hallucination, a trick of his imagination, but his instincts screamed danger. He took a step back and felt something brush against his arm, cold and clammy. He yanked his arm away, panic rising. His hands fumbled in the darkness for the door, for anything. But there was nothing, only the tapping and the breath. Suddenly, the corridor tilted, as if the floor itself was shifting. James stumbled, grabbing the wall to steady himself. He heard faint voices now, murmurs layered beneath the tapping and breathing. Words in a language he didn't recognize, ancient and haunting. James forced himself to listen. One phrase repeated again and again. Behind the door, waiting, he shuddered. His mind raced back to the blueprints. No hidden corridor should exist here. No secret passage. No forgotten door. Yet here he was, trapped inside a place erased from all records. A cold realization dawned on him. Whatever had been waiting behind that door was no ordinary secret. It was something alive, something patient, something dangerous. The tapping grew louder, now a frantic rhythm echoing in the tight space. James's breath came in ragged gasps. He tried to calm himself, reminding himself he was a trained professional, not some frightened man lost in a haunted house. But this was no ordinary place. His flashlight flickered weakly back to life. In the beam, he saw it, a door. Not a wooden one like the first, but a heavy iron door, scratched with strange symbols that glowed faintly in the dark. His heart sank. This wasn't part of the renovation plan either. What lay beyond this iron door? A sudden crack split the silence, the door creaking open slowly, as if inviting him in, or warning him away. James stared, frozen. From the gap came a rush of cold air, and a sound, low and guttural, a growl that seemed to vibrate through his very bones. He took a trembling step forward. "Who's there?" he shouted. No answer, just the cold, the darkness, and the sense that something was watching, waiting to claim him. The iron door swung wide open, revealing pitch-black nothingness, and from within, a pair of glowing eyes blinked slowly. Part 3. The eyes in the darkness. James stared into the abyss beyond the iron door. The pair of glowing eyes blinked once, then fixed on him with an intensity that sent a shudder straight through his bones. The light from his flashlight faltered, casting long, jittery shadows along the narrow corridor. His breath caught. The cold air wasn't just cold anymore. It felt alive, pulsating like a heartbeat in the darkness. A voice echoed softly, barely more than a breath. "You shouldn't have come here." James wanted to run, but his feet were glued to the damp stone floor. Every instinct screamed to flee, yet curiosity anchored him in place. The eyes didn't blink again. Instead, they seemed to study him, weighing his presence. The corridor behind him was now silent and still. The iron door remained wide open, an invitation or a trap. It was impossible to tell. He stepped forward, the beam of his flashlight barely reaching the edges of the doorway. Beyond the threshold, the darkness seemed endless, as if swallowing the light whole. A faint scraping sound echoed from somewhere deeper, like fingernails tracing stone. James swallowed hard and called out again, voice steady but tense. "Who's there? Show yourself." No reply, just silence. Then, the soft tapping began again, now closer, almost at his feet. He shone the flashlight down, revealing nothing but cracked stone and shadows. Suddenly, a cold breath brushed against his cheek, like icy fingers trailing down his spine. He spun, flashlight trembling in his grasp, but there was nothing. Then, faint footsteps, slow and deliberate, approached from the darkness beyond the door. James backed up, heart pounding. The footsteps stopped just out of sight. From the blackness emerged a figure, indistinct, shifting between shadow and form. It wore tattered clothing, its face obscured, but those eyes, glowing faintly, were unmistakable. The figure extended a pale, skeletal hand. "Help me," it whispered. James hesitated. His mind screamed danger, but his heart ached with something else. Pity, perhaps, or curiosity too deep to resist. He reached out his hand. Before their fingers touched, a deafening roar shattered the silence. The corridor trembled violently. Dust and debris rained down from the ceiling. The figure vanished. The iron door slammed shut behind James, sealing him inside total darkness. Trapped in the pitch black, James's ears picked up one last sound, a whisper, cold and final. "You opened what should have stayed closed." Part 4. The secret beneath the walls. James stood frozen, swallowed whole by the oppressive darkness. The roar had faded, leaving behind an eerie stillness that pressed against his ears. His heart hammered so loudly it seemed to echo in the empty space. His hands fumbled desperately along the cold, rough walls, searching for any sign of a way out. The stone was damp and slick with something sticky. He recoiled in disgust, but kept moving. Panic threatened to overwhelm him, but he forced himself to focus. In the faintest glimmer of returning light, his fingertips brushed against something strange. Not stone or mortar, but a cold, smooth surface, a panel slightly ajar. With trembling hands, James pulled it open, revealing a narrow shaft descending into deeper darkness. A rush of stale, musty air rose up, carrying with it the scent of earth and decay. Against every warning screaming inside him, James climbed down. The shaft opened into a vast underground chamber, lit faintly by phosphorescent moss clinging to the walls. Ancient symbols, scratched deep into stone, lined the cavern, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. At the chamber's center stood a massive stone door, unlike anything James had seen. covered in runes and a sickly green glow that seemed to move. He stepped closer, compelled by something primal. The air thrummed with a strange energy, buzzing beneath his skin. Suddenly, the voice returned, clearer this time, echoing off the walls. You were never meant to find this. James's flashlight caught the carved face of a creature etched into the door, a grotesque mask, half human, half beast, eyes staring into his soul. The chamber trembled again. From the shadows, the glowing eyes reappeared, watching, waiting. James reached out to touch the door. A searing pain shot through his hand. He yanked it back, gasping. The voice whispered, "Now you're part of it." The runes flared, light flooding the chamber. And then, silence. James collapsed to his knees, the weight of the secret crushing him. As he looked up, he realized the runes had shifted, now spelling a single chilling word. Welcome. Part 5. The door that never should have opened. James lay on the cold stone floor of the underground chamber, his body trembling. The word welcome glowed eerily on the massive door before him, pulsing with an unnatural life. His mind raced, piecing together the fragments of what he'd just experienced. This was no ordinary hidden room, no forgotten storage or secret passage. It was a prison, a gateway sealed away by something ancient and terrible. The glowing eyes watched him from the shadows, unblinking and waiting. Suddenly, the stone door began to grind open, slow and ominous, revealing a blackness so deep it seemed to swallow the faint glow from the runes. From within, a cold wind rushed out, carrying whispers, fragmented voices, desperate, angry, and ancient. James struggled to stand, every muscle screaming. As the darkness spilled into the chamber, shapes began to form, shadowy figures writhing and twisting, emerging like smoke from the abyss. The voice from before came again, this time a whisper in his mind. You freed us. Now you belong to the waiting. Panic surged through James. He bolted toward the shaft he had climbed down, but the shadows swirled around him, thickening like a living fog. He reached the ladder, scrambling upward as the darkness clawed at his heels. Bursting through the panel, he slammed it shut behind him and climbed faster than he ever had before. The stone walls around him shook violently, as if the entire building was protesting. He reached the corridor just as the iron door slammed shut again, cutting off the darkness. James leaned against the wall, gasping, drenched in sweat. His phone buzzed in his pocket, a message from his assistant. James, you won't believe this. The blueprints, they've been changed. The building isn't what it seems, and there's no record of that door anywhere. He looked back at the iron door, heart pounding. The building wasn't just hiding a secret. It was alive, waiting, watching, and now it had marked him. As James turned away, the faintest sound echoed behind the door, soft scratching, like nails tapping, waiting for the next visitor.